This is the Capitol Rundown.
In the poll, abortion had 24% of the people who said that's my top issue. And tied with that was inflation, 24%.
Matter of fact, in many news reporters, this is one of the top 10 districts in the nation that's supposed to determine whether or not the Democrats control Congress.
Thank you, Jimmy, for this Jimmy Emmy.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Lauren Thompson. Absentee ballots for election 22 will be available to Michigan voters later this week, and we're just a little more than 6 weeks away from Election Day itself. With that in mind, we have a snapshot of where things stand for multiple races. We have polls for the top 3 statewide races, a couple of ballot initiatives, and even a congressional race. We start at the top of the ticket. A poll by Epic MRA shows incumbent Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer with a 16-point lead over Republican challenger Tudor Dixon. Whitmer is up 5 points from a similar poll taken last month, while Dixon remains just under 40%. Only 6% were undecided or refused to say. According to the poll, Democrats are growing their leads in other races too. Check out the numbers for Attorney General. Incumbent Dana Nessel has seen her support grow by 5%, up to 48, while Republican challenger Matt DePerno, like Dixon, is holding steady at 39. That gives Nessel a 9-point edge. And in the race for Secretary of State, the incumbent Democrat has grown her lead as well. Jocelyn Benson is now passing the 50% mark, up 7 points from last month, while Republican challenger Christina Caramo holds steady around 37%. That's a 14% difference. Of course, it's not just candidates on the ballot. Michiganders will be voting for 3 ballot initiatives as well, and we have some insight into how voters are feeling about 2 of them. We'll start with Proposal 2. That's the initiative that has to do with voting rights. It would, among other things, require drop boxes and prepaid postage for absentee applications and ballots, require 9 days of early voting, and only allow election officials to conduct audits. And there appears to be wide support for the plan. 70% of those asked say they back that idea. Only 20% of those polled said no. The other 10% haven't made up their minds or wouldn't say. Then there's Proposal 3. This is the one that would protect reproductive rights in Michigan, and it would enshrine the right to have an abortion in the state's constitution. And while it's not quite as popular as Proposal 2, it still has the support of a large number of Michiganders. Almost 2/3 of those polled say they support the idea, while about 1 out of 4 say they plan to vote no. Well, the poll did not ask, however, about Proposal 1, which would change the term limits for the state legislature. It was run by the Lansing firm Epic MRA and surveyed 600 people between September 15th and 19th, and this poll has a margin of error of plus or minus 4%. Well, those are the numbers, but when we come back, we're going to dig a little deeper into the issues that are most important to voters and how the candidates for governor are trying to tailor their message around them. Stick around. That's next on the Capitol Rundown. Welcome back. We continue looking into the latest poll now. It also asked which issues are most important to Michiganders, and the results look very different from what we've seen in the past. Check this out. As it turns out, there's a tie for the top spot. It's abortion laws and controlling inflation and the cost of food, gas, and other items. Almost a quarter of Michiganders chose one or the other, accounting for almost half of the people polled. There's also a tie for the next 2 spots, improving Michigan's economy and the job situation and improving the quality of education. Each of those were the top concerns of 10% of those surveyed. Get this though, fixing Michigan's roads, a usual contender for the top spot, it came in 5th place with just 8% of the vote. Well, both candidates for governor are using some of those top issues to try and turn the tables on their opponent. So how's that working out? Well, the poll told Michiganders that Dixon was blaming Governor Whitmer and President Biden for inflation and the high cost of living. Then they asked if it would make them more or less likely to vote for Whitmer. Here's what they said. 22% said the message actually made it more likely that they'd vote for Whitmer. 30% said it made it less likely, and 47% said it wouldn't affect their vote. Pollsters also asked if Dixon's message about Whitmer closing schools and businesses during the COVID pandemic would change their vote, and it was a wash. 28% said it made them more likely to vote for Whitmer, and 28% said less likely. 43% said it didn't make a difference. The poll also asked a couple of questions about Whitmer's messaging, and it found that her messages might be making more of a difference, starting with abortion. Now, the poll told people that Whitmer was campaigning on Dixon's pro-life stance and that Dixon opposed abortions without exception, including rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Then they asked if that would make them more or less likely to vote for Dixon. 15% said it made them more likely to vote for the Republican challenger, but almost half of those surveyed said it would probably cost Dixon their vote. About a third said it wouldn't make a difference at all. Pollsters also told people taking the survey that Dixon thought the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump and asked if that would affect their vote. Again, 15% said it made them more likely to vote for her, but more than twice as many said it made them less likely to support Dixon. About half said it wouldn't change their vote one way or another. Well, that's certainly a lot of information to take in. So here now to break it down and help make sense of it all are Jorma Duran and our Capitol correspondent, Tim Skubic.
It's time to get updated politically here in the state of Michigan, and nobody better than this guy right here, Tim Skubic. Tim, we've got some new polling that suggests the abortion issue is having a huge effect down the ballot, not just on Prop 3. What do you make of that?
Well, there has been a link. In fact, the Democrats are very happy that there is this linkage, that the abortion issue, which is getting 64% of the vote, is driving independent women and Democratic women to be very active participating politically. As they look at the abortion issue, they are also looking at the candidates running for governor and who is on their side. And on this one, this is a black and white issue. Tudor Dixon, the Republican challenger, has made it very clear that she is anti-abortion, even in cases of rape and incest, but for the life of the mother, she is on board. But Governor Whitmer is all in all phases of the pro-choice movement, and so the vote is going to Ms. Whitmer, and it is driving the numbers in the polling between these two candidates.
Let's talk about other races, not just the governor's race. Does that abortion kind of impact many other races that may be a toss-up?
Well, you have the Attorney General's race where Dana Nessel has a lead over Matt DePerno, and in the Secretary of State contest, Jocelyn Benson has a pretty hefty lead over Republican challenger Christina Caramo. And the problem for those two Republicans is nobody knows still, here we are almost in October, still at about 70 to 80% people that have no idea who these candidates are.
Let's keep on this poll. It's also talking about the effectiveness of the messaging in both campaigns. What do you know? What's working, maybe what's not?
Well, here's a good point that Bernie Porn raises. Tudor Dixon just had a huge news conference a couple of weeks ago on the crime issue. Major problem. The only problem for her is only 3% of the voters say it's a problem for me. And so when you're pitching an issue that a small minority are in favor of, you can't move the needle very far. Now, here's the really interesting point. In the poll, abortion had 24% of the people who said that's my top issue. And tied with that was inflation, 24%, which last time I checked was a major theme that Republicans were banging on. And while Ms. Dixon has raised the issue, it has clearly not been the centerpiece of her campaign. She's never had a news conference on the inflation issue per se. And so you got to wonder, why aren't they playing off of that issue, which has broader appeal if you're trying to broaden your vote count?
Yeah, wild stuff. Always great to talk to you, Tim. You're always getting us up to date. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. When we come back, we have some poll numbers in a race that hasn't had public polling yet. It's for one of the hottest congressional races in the nation, and these numbers, might surprise you. That's coming up when the Capitol Rundown returns. Well, the race for Michigan's 7th congressional district, which includes Greater Lansing, is supposed to be one of the hottest races in the nation. With so many districts drawn to favor one party or another, many consider this 7th district one of the country's true toss-ups. It features the incumbent Democrat Elissa Slotkin in a newly drawn district. Some of it overlaps with her previous district, but much of it is new, including Clinton, Shiawassee, and most of Eaton County. And Eaton County is home to Tom Barrett, a former state representative for the area and the current state senator. As we said, the experts expected a close race, but that's not what new polling shows. The firm Target Insight shows the incumbent Democrat with a commanding lead. The poll of 500 people shows Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin with the support of 56% of those surveyed, while Barrett, the Republican, has 38%. That's an 18-point lead, and that's a big surprise to people who expected a tight race. We are still more than 6 weeks away from Election Day, though, and this is just a snapshot of how things look before voting even begins. So we sat down with pollster Ed Sarpoulos to talk about what he found and why.
And I think what the poll is telling us is the fact that what Republicans are saying nationally is actually appearing right here in backyard Lansing, Michigan, because Tudor Dixon, who's running for governor against Gretchen Whitmer, is actually bringing down the ticket. Tudor Dixon, only 28% of the voters in this district like her, compared to 51% like Gretchen Whitmer, and the same conversely, about 35% like Tom Barrett. And you've got the fact that Lisa Slotkin's over 50%. And so with Tudor Dixon doing well, there's sort of negative coattails, which is impacting Tom Barrett. The key thing here is the poll was done because there's been so much coverage about the impact on the woman's right to choose. This is a Republican-leaning district. As a matter of fact, in many news reporters, this is one of the top 10 districts in the nation that's supposed to determine whether or not the Democrats control Congress. Well, in this district right now, though it's Republican-leaning, it's like nearly 59% support the woman's right to choose. Even Republicans at 30% support women's right to choose, and that means 19% of Republicans are voting for Elissa Slotkin, predominantly because of that. I know this gentleman for a long time when we ran the first time. In fact, he's a likable people. He's done well in the community, but when it comes to this race, he's not competing on name recognition. He's not personal money, and all the negative ads against Elissa Slotkin basically are saying there's no choice. Where do I go? And right now, they don't know who Tom Barrett is.
Well, the Barrett campaign responded to the numbers, calling the poll garbage and saying their internal polls show they're basically tied. Well, while we spend a lot of time focusing on the executive and legislative branches of government, Michiganders also vote for many judges. And this week, they had a chance to hear from candidates for the highest court. Voters will choose 2 of them to serve. And while they are nominated and supported by political parties, there was a running theme among all of the candidates of keeping politics out of the judicial system.
Politics are white hot right now and passions are running high. But that's when judicial temperament and character matter the most. We need our judges to step back from the partisan fray, take a deep breath, and get back to the basics of judging.
You've got to be a good judge. And being a good judge means that you stay in your lane at all times. And I'm just going to quote the old verse is that, you go from playing the game, as I did as a litigator for 15 years, to basically reffing the game.
I consider myself a public servant. What we do in the community, I go way beyond my job as far as voting. It's being in the communities and letting people know what you have done on their behalf.
I don't think any judge would ever admit to be a politician because that is an offense against the people. who believe the legislative branch is that and the executive branch is that and the courts ought never be that.
I am a public servant. And how do I serve the public? By respecting the separation of powers, by having a reverence for the Constitution, by exercising judicial restraint, by being hardworking and humble.
Well, speaking of the courts, the former president had a rough week in them. We'll walk you through Donald Trump's latest issues in court and tell you what Michiganders think when the Capitol Rundown continues. It was another rough week for former President Donald Trump, who remains the target of several investigations and who found himself in legal hot water. The New York Attorney General sued Trump and his family this week. She's accusing them of fraud, asking for $250 million and banning the Trumps from doing business in New York. And while Trump got the special master he wanted after the search of his Mar-a-Lago home, that special master is telling Trump's lawyers to basically put up or shut up about the documents taken from Mar-a-Lago and whether or not they were classified. And an appeals court overturned part of a prior ruling allowing the Justice Department to continue its investigation using those documents. And when we asked in our poll whether the FBI search of Trump's Florida home was justified or not, a substantial majority said it was. 58% saying they thought it was, 36% saying it was not. The rest were undecided or refused to say. Well, when we come back, we'll wrap up the rundown with some much-needed political humor with a Michigan politician as the punchline. We'll let you in on this joke when the Capitol Rundown returns. Well, if you watch TV, you've undoubtedly seen many political ads. Some are good and others, well, they're not as good. And this week, Jimmy Kimmel nominated his favorites, and a Michigander came out on top.
And Sri Tanadar, Sri's company.
Hi, I'm Sri.
Sri Tanadar, scientist, state representative.
What was that? It's the voice from the commercial.
How was it, Dave?
He took on Republicans to protect the right to vote for all Michiganders.
Again?
Vote for Sri.
Now these performances truly...
Well, with those political ads, it's always good to find entertainment. And if you are interested in getting more political news from Michigan and Washington, we have just the thing for you. You can sign up. Okay. What happened there? Well, if you watch TV, you've undoubtedly seen many political ads. Some are good and others, well, they're not as good. And this week, Jimmy Kimmel nominated his favorites, and a Michigander came out on top.
And Shri Tanadar, Shri's company.
Hi, I'm Shri.
Shri Tanadar, scientist, state representative.
What was that? It's the voice from the commercial.
How was your day?
He took on Republicans to protect the right to vote for all Michiganders.
Again?
Vote for Shri.
Now, these performances truly represent the worst of the best of the worst, the best of the worst. Something in the Emmy for outstanding performance in a political ad goes to Shri Tanadar. His home in Detroit, Michigan State Representative Shri Tanadar. Hello, Shri. Congratulations on winning your primary.
Thank you, Jimmy, for this Jimmy Emmy.
You gotta love that. Well, if you're interested in getting more political news from Michigan and Washington, we've got just the thing. You can sign up for our Capitol Rundown newsletter. It's just one email each week, and you can get it by pointing your cell phone camera at the symbol on your screen right now. This will take you right to the sign-up page, or you can head to WLNS.com/newsletters. Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching the Capitol Rundown. We hope to see you here again next weekend.